Welcome to Today in Space. I am, as always, your space science podcast host from the East Coast, Alex Girofanos. And today I'm just doing an update episode. I looked at the calendar just now. I finally had a chance to lift up my head after all the chaos that's been happening from what I talked about in the last episode and everything else that's happened since. I realized we've only put out one episode this month, and there's a lot that's happened, so I figured I might as well just jump on and record something quick because I'm all dialed in. So I was laid off from my day job. And it's really interesting. I was thinking back on this. I didn't actually mention the last time that this happened. It was during the pandemic. It's possible that I mentioned it deep into an episode, which is when I would expect most people have stopped listening. Bury that in the end. But yeah, so I'm in the boat of so many people that are in the US right now. And unfortunately, this goes back to our theory, the space conundrum, that with space progress comes societal chaos. And we saw that play out in the first space race. Obviously, there was the civil injustices of the 60s, and then the 70s with the gas crisis, the oil crisis, and how many people had lost their jobs. Then we're in a very similar place. And unfortunately, the not that it's fortunate anytime that people get laid off, but we're seeing institutions with lots of talent, and that's where I'll stick my conversation to is talking about NASA because it does reflect a lot of what I've seen happen to myself and the industry I was in. But you've got this shedding of extreme talent that you cannot just get back. I know financially the numbers may work on paper, but there's a morale that comes with all of that talent being around too that I think is really misunderstood. And when you're working with really talented people, you're going to go through the struggles, whether you're in a business where you've got business goals while you're doing science, and you've got that dilemma of, am I going to compromise my scientific values for this company's business values? That's something every person, every scientist that works in business needs to ask yourself. But that's the same question you ask in the three fields, right? You've got academia, right? Where there are people who are brilliant and have amazing stuff that never have the opportunity to do research because of politics within academia or because one professor doesn't like a certain uh, graduate student or doctoral candidate. All that stuff happens. Never mind, can the school actually find funding for this research? And if they have funding money, will they actually give it to these types of things? Or will they give it to relationships and all that stuff? That's kind of the academic. That's aside from the shaming and the some of the more nasty things that happens in academia, and it happens in the tech corporate life as well, the private side of science. And then you've got the defense side of things where, you're using your science for defense, but also, a lot of times things that are killing people. And so you have to deal with that side of things. And some people like myself chose not to get into that side of things, which is why I went into the more risky private side of using my scientific abilities. Uh, and even that, I mean, that was a higher risk thing, right? Like when things were great, things were awesome. And it was one of the best places I've worked in my career as far as working with talented people, people that push you and your understanding of something and who on merit love what you're doing because, if you show up and you're able to solve some problems and you make it about the data or the thing and not the person and how they're dealing with it, there's this amazing place you can get to as a scientist in the private world where you can really bring in all sides. And that's kind of what I think my biggest skill set within the 3D printing industry was the fact that I could play the bridge between the technical and the sales roles, the in front of the customer and behind the settings. Like I could the introverted and the extroverted. Like I could help bring together those people so that everyone could talk, everyone, and we could translate, right? I could translate what one person is saying into like what the introvert is trying to say that the extrovert is not getting, or if the extrovert's going too hard and not giving enough data, I could go, well, the reason we thought of that is X, Y, and Z, and then and then the scientific critical person goes, ah, okay, that was my concern that I'm trying to get hashed out here, and all I'm hearing are emotional words that don't make any sense to me. So that's that's where I think my greatest skill set lies. I mean, yes, I have been hands-on with making real parts with a 3D printer for coming up on a decade at this point. I started for 2 years before I even got into the 3D printing industry, doing it on my own. And then I realized what I was doing for my business actually was an application engineering role, which is the technical arm of sales, right? You're going out proving ROI of a technology for a company, why they would want to spend six, seven figures on a 3D printing technology, right? Like I would be the science case for that. And I really love that role. And then I did time in the customer service, customer success role. Those were actually where I spent most of my time. Almost 5 years of that was helping customers, people where their highly technical manufacturing equipment breaks down. We could remote in. I could help control it. I could help look at the logs. I could help do basically help their down system get back and running. That was my job for the last 5 years. And before I even got in the 3D printing industry, I kind of cut my teeth in the customer service realm with Apple. And that was a great in the retail side of things. So I was at a Genius Bar taking cases, and then some of my time was going out back. This was after I had been there a while and done the training. I could actually repair the iPhones. And we were on a schedule, and like that was some of the most fun times. And I learned a lot about what it meant to be an engineer, like what I had just spent, well, essentially the 7 years before that, getting my, finally getting my degree, four of it full time, three of it part time. I got my degree and then I wanted to get into business. And honestly, back then, I just didn't know enough, right? I didn't know enough about running a business. I didn't know enough about the 3D printing business and the industry itself. So when I got started those first 2 years, working at Apple was a huge growing moment for myself because I had just started the business and I really didn't know how to go out and get sales or anything like that, or even like make a website and present what problems I'm solving to people in a way that they're interested in and not just the way that I think they should be interested in, which is a very engineering thing to think. And like of course this would be the most like the reason that you would buy from me is because of the precision that I'm making. And it's like most people didn't have any idea what I was talking about. So, anyways, I've done a lot of reflecting over the last week since it happened, and I know there's a lot of people who maybe through their time watching this podcast may find themselves unemployed right now, or the folks at NASA who are now finding a new career. Let me tell you, I'm right in there with you. Now, I have been working two side businesses for a long time, and bootstrapping it with my daytime engineering job. So I've been building in the background for a while. Obviously, with this podcast, I've been getting in my reps, making sure that I'm posting as consistently as I can while also balancing the fact that this is not an income generating or sizable income generating venture. It's an artistic expression, right? More than anything else. I was a jazz musician before I was a podcaster or even an aerospace engineer. It was about I loved performing. I mean, it was like every weekend I was practicing hours a week. 2 nights a week were dedicated to rehearsals. And then all weekend we spent on a bus going to a competition, going to a show, and then coming back. Like it was legit uh jazz lifestyle. That was my high school years and it was fantastic. And so what I found after college was that I didn't have that creative outlet anymore. And so I've gotten back into music. I'm singing more than I'm doing any kind of trumpet playing these days, but that may change. And So this podcast has been that. And so that's been my focus is just to continue getting better at this, getting better than the last episode. And uh, since joining the Gary Vaynerchuk universe of just making content online and what's good content, I've learned a lot through that, through the VFriends community that we were just in Chicago for that National Sports Card Convention. Like I've learned a lot from these people that are in my life, and I'm grateful for that. And all of that work that I've been doing has led us to this place where I'm going to use my application engineering, customer success, and marketing, content, branding skills, and I'm putting them all together. And we're working on 3D printing and AI right now. So if I didn't mention it in the last episode. So AG 3D printing is now AG 3D Labs. To encompass the fact that we're working on 3D printing and software and AI. Now, you know, the whole plan of this is to work on some of the problems in the 3D printing industry that I've seen over the last 10 years that I've been in it, from the industrial side to the small business side. You know, there are just some things that the big companies of the 3D printing industry have too many things that they're working on and they need to focus. And they're not going to be able to solve all the problems, nor do they really want to, right? It's a whole other thing. But because you got to be effective, you have to actually solve problems in a company. Otherwise, what do you do? Right? How long is that going to last? So anyways, when I was in college, I did some coding for iOS apps. We made some applications for the chemistry department because they were looking to make their labs paperless, which was really, I mean, this was back in 2010, 2011. So that was really, the iPad had really hit the market. So it was like there's finally something big enough the ease of the apps, like those teachers were way ahead of it and they were like, hey, if we can get green, if we can get like paperless right away, like that's huge value. It would also help them in the gathering of all that data for all those labs, right? You would have been able to have all the notes, everyone's answers, quizzes graded immediately. Like they were really thinking ahead. And so they were just using us as a way to make that done. And I did the bulk of that creation. We made an app, even though it wasn't like dynamic. We didn't make like a library of questions and make their whole database, which with AI today you could. Oh, it was just like a prototype, right? We just made one lesson so that that would be the example lesson, but you could go through the whole app and type in a box and click the button send, even though it didn't do anything, but you could click the button. Like those were really amazing things. And then we tried out some labs and did some experimentation, and then that was our paper, right? So that was my experience with coding. Self-taught. I had to learn it very, very fast because we only had a certain amount of time for this project. And that gave me the skills where now, even though I wouldn't consider myself a coder per se, I always thought of it like I could help manage coders, right? I knew exactly where they needed to go. I knew about code, and I could ask good enough questions so that if I was in the room with them, they could know that at least I understand the basics of what we're talking about here, right? Like I understand basic grammar in your language. Like we can have a conversation now. And maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit for that, but now with AI tools, my skills I can be that role, right? I can be the person saying, this is where I want to go. I can ask questions in order to get that. And basically, the AI tools are just able to search the entirety of what the code language has. Like we're using Python, right, as the language. It's really fascinating to see how fast they can say, well, these are the functions you have. We're just going to spit those in. Like, it's been a very interesting journey getting to know these AI tools. I had been playing with them this year, really a lot more. We've done episodes where we've talked about the AI tools that I use to edit this podcast and to save myself time during the week, right? And now when we're using AI to help with the coding and the bulk work of just like rooting through a database, putting in the structure code, and then the rest is up to me. The rest is the style, the functionality, the logic. Like, does it actually do what I want it to do? All of those things are what we're going through right now, and I'm having a blast. I mean, to be able to have this opportunity to be able to focus in on those two things, the 3D printing and AI, and this podcast to cover the space history that we're about to go through. I'm just grateful to be here, and I'm grateful that you're listening to this. If you are, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I cannot believe that we're almost at 400 episodes, and how much craziness in life has happened throughout the entirety of this podcast, from episode 1 to 100 to what are we, 389 now, 390? I'm not even sure. It's really crazy, but this is a new era for me, and I'm ready to hit it with full throttle. So we're going to be going live for Starship. We've already gone live twice. The first scrub and then the second due to that storm that was off the launch pad. Everything else was fine. The rocket was loaded. Every other checklist for the rocket was fine except for that storm that wasn't going to clear in time before the fuel, I'm guessing, was no longer cryogenically cold. And so then they'd have to refresh and empty and refill, which uh, would have left them out of the launch window. So unfortunately, like these rocket launches go, they are always a possible for a scrub, and a scrub is way better than destroying the pad and the rocket and the booster so that you don't have another shot at it. So look, will we be live again tonight at 7 p.m. to catch the third attempt of Starship Flight 10? You better believe it. We'll be there because we got nowhere else to go. No, I'm just kidding. We've got an episode and a YouTube video compiling our first week, 2 weeks of Starlink. We've been streaming with that. Sometimes the streaming has been flawless and just done really well, and other times the the Starlink, like last night, was struggling hard. So what I'm going to try and do today is actually get the Starlink mounted on the pole that I have made right now. And that'll be a temporary fix because I have to, we'll talk about it more, but I want to make sure that it has a permanent setup for Starlink, and not just a janky situation where I have cables running across my yard in order to make this happen, which is kind of what's happening right now. So, anyways, that's everything, folks. That's all I can give you. This is the update episode. A lot is going on, but if you would please subscribe to the podcast, like if you're on YouTube, hit that bell, make sure you're notified for everything because we're going to be going live a lot more. Also, if you have a 3D printing problem, or if you know somebody with a 3D printing problem, a challenge, maybe they want to talk to somebody to see how 3D printing can be used for them, myself, the part detective at ag3d-printing.com, I'm available for help. We can do a 3D printing consultation where you get an hour of my time and my expertise over the last decade to ask me anything about 3D printing, whether you're looking to use it yourself, whether you're trying to think about the future of 3D printing, you just want to learn more, or you want to start a business with an idea, like whatever it is, you've got an hour of our time. Go to our website, ag3d-printing.com, to sign up. My schedule is live. And then, of course, we are going to be combining AG 3D Labs for 3D printing and AI. And so we're going to be building tools. We've got our first app that is going to be solving one of the problems that will help enable people with 3D printers to have more business in 3D printing, to make things a little bit more frictionless for the customer who may very well be brand new to 3D printing. How do you make them comfortable enough and give them an idea of what this project is going to take in an instant? So that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. But you'll find out soon, hopefully by the end of the month. That is our slated date to get the first app for AG3D out. And if you want to sign up for our newsletter at ag3d-printing.com, it's right there on the main page. do so. And then that way you'll have all the updates from there. So that's it, folks. Good luck to Starship Team. Flight 10 is this week. It's tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be live on X, Twitch, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So make sure to follow us there. And that's it, folks. Spread love, spread science, be well. Good luck to all the teams who have been sleeping on a schedule, like a routined, I'm not working, I'm sleeping schedule to make Starship work. Thank you. And we're excited to see all your hard work culminate in Flight 10 and Flight 11. Let's go, SpaceX, for the future of human spaceflight here in America. We all wish you luck. So burn hard, fly high, and let's get this rocket and ship to orbit and back, baby. See you, everybody.